like get back in the pat, because the last time we did this, Grim and I were sitting at a table together with Addie, and it was such a different experience.
Yeah, it was very different, and also seeing like footage of it, actually watching through it, because I went back and rewatched it, and then I also saw Bray's short that he made out of his experience there.
Yes. Which I love.
That was
so
fun.
Good.
That was very neat to see.
Only time will tell how, in what way we find to harass Beret in this episode where he's not here. Hello, and welcome to episode 45 of the Foam News Collective podcast. I'm KT. I am here with the whole crew, Vile and Grimz. Say what's up, y'all.
How's it going?
As we mentioned in that part in the intro that I'm probably going to keep in, Grimz and I were just at Ragnar Oktoberfest on the West Coast, and Vile was not there, but Vile was there in spirit with the we're on video, show it, Vile, with the cyclotron, modded cyclotron that he sent with me to run at the HVZ, shooting Rival out of Soldier 76 internals. So
cool. Blue team's prized blaster.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so.
It was a good one.
Vile was there in spirit. But we are super pumped to have a very special returning guest, Anthony, a.k.a. Maritime Foam. It's so good to have you back. It's so good to chat with you again.
It's good to be back.
How are you doing this lovely evening?
I'm doing well. I'm in the midst of setting up Maritime Foam Studio 3. So it's not quite at its best, but it has a lot of potential. I have more workbench room than before, space for all of my printers in the same room, a laser engraver, nothing but potential here in Studio 3.
That is nice. That does sound very nice. It is currently a Home Depot ad for those watching on the video.
It definitely is. And you know what? Their boxes, everyone, this is not a sponsored ad, but their boxes are great for moving. So please go out, get yourself a Home Depot box. Tell them Maritime Foam sent you. Use code MF Studio 3.
Well,
big discounts.
It's funny that you would say that, because one of the main thing that I really want to talk about with you today, because we've gotten to chat so much on these, and so I really appreciate this as an opportunity to sort of dig deeper into a topic, and topics that are really affecting the hobby a lot right now that I think are being talked about a lot, is review culture and content culture and relationships with companies and sponsorships. And it's something that I think our hobby is starting to deal with a little more intensely lately. And as someone who has a lot of independence still, but some history in that area, I feel like we could have a great conversation about that.
Yeah, for sure.
So we're going to talk about some of your background in that. We're going to talk about reviews in general. We're going to do our classic questions from the Ko-Fi, as well as our increasingly, I'm just going to continue to call it increasingly notorious. And it just, the notorious level, hypothetically, will just continue to increase indefinitely. Hobby trivia game. And then come back and talk a little bit more about direct relationships with companies, and sponsorships, and we just did a segment on UGC, talk about that kind of stuff a little bit, and even get into some specifics. Maybe that's dangerous, I don't know, but we'll worry about that later. But for the moment, your Maritime, your content in particular has been changing quite a bit lately, as evidenced by the fact that you're moving, a lot's been changing for you. So I'm curious what your take would be on how and why your approach to content has changed lately.
Yeah, and I'll warn you too, I am in a new space. I will be hardwired in future, but I am on Wi-Fi, so if I cut out, just people wave at me and try and let me know. Because I had like a little tiny bit of a cutout there. But as far as for how, I'll answer kind of broadly, and you can stop me and rein me in at any time, because you guys know I can talk endlessly. I feel like how my approach to content is really, it's really swung around quite a bit, and I guess it's kind of really depended on the circumstances of the time. So just like really broadly, when I started out, I kind of did all long form stuff because that's all I really knew a whole lot about. I was just grabbing blasters that were interesting to me. They weren't always even timely reviews. It was, it's like, who's this guy reviewing something that came out months and months ago? Not that I don't do that now sometimes too, because I'm in Canada.
Right.
And sometimes I still want to talk about it anyway. And then I really got into shorts. And, I actually feel like I'm probably in the next little while going to go back into like a heavy push on shorts because I just enjoy talking about a bunch of different stuff. I think a main reason I kind of did a bit of more of a slant in a long form for a bit is I kind of let YouTube lead me there with the fact that monetization is, I like the idea of my channel paying for my storage locker for my Nerf to like zero that out. It's not like it's big money, but in my head, it's like, I can live with having a storage locker for my hobby that I pay for if the channel kind of helps pay for it. But like, that's not the best reason to do. I don't know. I tried to make long form stuff also be like, it had to be something kind of special, like special to me. Like it had to be something I thought was really neat or like unique for some reason. And shorts are more, shorts, I think a lot of what is said in a lot of people's long form can still be said in a short. It'll be interesting with YouTube going to shorts being 3 minutes, what that does for people as well. I imagine I'll go probably back into a bit more of a slew on shorts because I've always enjoyed them. It's a good way to cover a broad amount of topics. It's good for channel growth. Like I'm pretty transparent about what I like seeing the little sub counter go up. Is that mature of me? I don't know. But
of course.
And shorts do that. It's not good for
that's the game.
monetization.
That's the game that they expect us to play.
Yeah, and I like, I like new people finding the channel just because more and more as time's gone on, I have so many people reach out and just like say hello. And like, I had a person who was on vacation who lives in Northern Ontario. He was on vacation here, looked me up because his friend said, "Oh, you should look Anthony up. He's at Maritime Foam. He's in that city." And this guy looked me up and brought his family over to my house on his vacation. And I let him try the pew pew and a bunch of stuff. And I think he found me through shorts originally and then subscribed. So I like that reach too. And then I guess lately there's been a little bit of an evolution of really unedited stuff where, and that was just a symptom of life just got so crazy that I wanted to say I kind of enjoyed, I think it also came from, I hadn't had a chance to do Friday Night Foams or the streaming stuff as much. I do love the chatting. Right. I think it kind of, even though it's one-sided chatting, it's just me chatting. But
what made you decide to go to a different format of video creation rather than just taking a break or doing nothing or what kept you brought you back to the platform to want to keep communicating?
I've taken tiny little breaks. My breaks weren't traditionally aren't very long, and I think that's because I do genuinely really enjoy it, and I like, especially where I do feel like I've made some great some great friends through doing this, and some at least a mix of good friends and strong acquaintances that if when I run into them that once or twice a year, it feels really great to do so, and I kind of miss it if I don't do anything. It makes me feel more plugged in, especially on a year where I could only get to one event and wasn't able to get to RAG or stuff like that. It helps to, I feel like it helps me feel a bit more plugged in if I'm still doing stuff and people are commenting and a lot of those videos kind of lead to other side chats on Instagram or people just checking in. So it's very much it's almost more of a social thing than anything. And then also just really just the time thing. I think I got to a point with long form stuff too, where I mean, everyone here knows what a drain editing can be. And I kind of got to the point where I was deep breathing every single intake of breath. And and I was I got to cut that out. Cause I watch other people's videos and not everyone does that. And I don't notice that, but it almost made it so I dreaded making a longer video.
It's not fun to do that kind of editing at all. It definitely drags a lot of the fun out of it. And what are you chasing? You're chasing the tiny percentage of viewers who aren't patient enough to watch you breathe.
For sure. And
and-
if anything, I posted one video, and again, these aren't not that they're high numbers, but I'm always appreciative and I think it's cool that there's anyone who's watching any of this stuff, all of us nerds with all the toys and all the other nerds with the toys being supportive. But I did one video where it was literally me walking in the dark to get a sweater and just chatting about some nonsense thing. And and I kind of joked that, CR Nerf in Cedar Rapids. I'm only Bill will make it to the end of this video, but but I don't know. I just felt like chatting, and I put it up there. It's always fun to just hear people get a chuckle out of they're oh, I thought the video was broken on this one. I definitely there's a lot of freedom in I'm kind of a weird mix of I like chasing numbers, and I also don't let myself care too much if I'm doing stuff that will hurt numbers.
Shout out to CR Nerf, by the way. One of people like you and him who just sort of run events for fun or as a side business or whatever. I feel are such a backbone of the hobby that gets ignored. But you mentioned too about the consistency thing, right? Just the momentum feels important, and the Vile and Grim. I don't know if you have anything to say about this too, because both of you have done a lot of content stuff on your own. But now that we're in the news show, it's been very different.
I have more than just the experience with my own channel. It comes from seeing a lot of other content creators, whether it just be casual observing or actually knowing another content creator, be it Twitch or YouTube. The thing I've noticed, which there are almost 3 or 4 different routes a content creator can go. If they're on YouTube, they can go down the path where it's I have to be consistent with my uploads or the algorithm will smite me. You either end up being the workaholic that ends up just getting so used to being on that regular grind set that that's what they know, so that's what they go back to. There are those that genuinely enjoy what they do, and then there are those that are just I'm just uploading out into the internet sphere because I would like to upload out into the internet sphere without a care in the world, kind of thing. And usually you get some intermingling of all of those into one person, but it seems within how Maritime's described it, they enjoy uploading consistently. But they also, and they like the numbers, but they don't let it get to them as much, which I would honestly say is about the healthiest way. There's a Venn diagram of where you can end up in a content creator space, and I think that's about the healthiest you can get it to be, because these algorithms and the way the stuff is designed, it's designed to encourage that behavior because it then pushes up their numbers, which then pushes up, ad viewership and all that other stuff that makes the company money. But if you can find that middle ground, that's the best spot to be in.
Yeah, I think for me, it was I when I first started trying to make content on YouTube, especially, I was trying to be consistent on an upload schedule, and I tried doing it, but I found myself going down the path of oh, well, I better talk about this thing because everybody's going to be talking about it. I should jump on this right now. And I found I really hated it. You're trying to ride the high of a new product or a review or a mod or whatever it is. And I personally, I really took a step back because where I was really focusing on was the live streaming. I do that primarily on Twitch, and that's the one that I really focus on. I enjoy streaming over there, and I do that every week. I've met a lot of really awesome people by doing that, and I get to hang out with a lot of fun people while I'm just modding goofy things like, the cyclotron that I had KT run. And I still like to do YouTube. It's just that what I found is I wanted it to be a modding channel because those are sort of becoming more and more scarce as time has gone on. Now there's so many store-bought items. You can just get 3D printed stuff. It doesn't matter. This stuff is just available. Back in the day, modding was sort of the way to get those amazing blasters, whether it was homemades or whether it was, pushing the limits of your long shot or, whatever it was. And those just they don't really exist because they don't gain the numbers. They're a slow burn. They're not like a video that's going to get 100,000 views in the first day or something. They're not like that. They are very, very slow videos. They get a few watches here and there. But what I found with those, and my last one that I did, which was on the Infinite, because I did an old school mod, and I actually, knowing that YouTube's going into the 3-minute segment would actually be perfect, because when I did the mod of that video, I put it all at the front end of it, and it was done in 3 minutes. The actual modding of the video was done in 3 minutes. And then from that point, like beyond the 3 minutes, it was FPS numbers and target shooting and discussion and stuff like that. And, you know, talking about Hawkeye's, you know, mod that he was working on and stuff. And it was like, that's for people who want to stay later. But for those who just want to be there for the mod and the mod only, I put it right at the front end. And I was like, you know, this is actually really good. That 3 minutes, you can get quite a lot in. Because 1 minute is you're really constricted, but having it pushed up to a 3 minute timer is really, really nice. And I think that's going to be a new sort of niche, that it's not the 10-minute videos. It's not this crammed in 1 minute video. So those who sort of have that weird middle ground, like what I would like to do, like, again, a quick video, let me get through the mod real fast. You could just watch that and not have to care. It's great because you can basically build 2 videos in one. You put that mod or whatever in the 3 minutes, and then you have the long form content that you can just work on later and post it as a longer video if they want to see all the other, you know, bells and whistles and discussion and talk and all of that. And I think...
people familiar with my 1 minute review format, that would be so much easier now, and I'm not worried about literally the 1 second that goes over that I have to trim 3 frames out of every breath in the video in order to get it down to fit within that 1 minute.
I definitely think the 3 minute change is a net positive, and it also might encourage. Shorts were already something that you kind of, some people, they felt them out and other people actually scripted ahead, but I feel like especially if it's 3 minutes, some people might be encouraged to go over to shorts, and so they might find that scripting, as we have found, is easier to get something condensed down to a much simpler thing. So it could lead to, while it is shorter form content, more quality content at the same time. So it's this very weird middle ground for a platform to take, where it's like, oh, we want the short form content, but we're giving you like some extra wiggle room, essentially, kind of thing, which I think is kind of good.
It works on so many levels. For like I said, for people like me, I fall right in the center. And that level, that content, or that little section right there, it's like a niche just for me. And that's where I'm going to probably want to try to make content and put it in there, just because that fits perfectly.
I'm really interested to see how I like it, because I do, like, the editor in me actually likes not a deadline, but likes, I kind of like that hard limit. Like, it's all, because I don't script any of my shorts. I just kind of go. And some of them are easier to edit down than others. So it's gonna be interesting to see. Like, I'm still gonna try to really keep myself things as tight as they can be. Like, I don't want to just make all my shorts are now 3 minutes, because I'm just like not cutting myself down as much. But there have been 1 minute shorts where I've cut out something where I'm like, I really wanted to say that, and I've cut it out and I'll put it in a comment or something. So I think it'll be. I think it's a good thing too. I think it's going to make it even harder for me, like in almost a good way. Like, something will have to be, for me, really special to do a long form video about, especially if I have 3 minutes. Like, because most reviews, I mean, I know we don't like to talk about it, but a lot of blasters are the same. So
100%.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so
fine.
this is a big part of what I want to talk about too, because one thing that a lot of us have touched on in this conversation already is specialization, where you find your niche, and a lot of what you can do is in that space, and really offer something special. But a lot of creators get stuck in this rut of doing reviews, because there's a perception, at least, that reviews are a better way to get discovery on your channel. I'm not 100% sure that's really true, or that the numbers really back that up. But I want to, I talked about my review concept was to just fit them all into shorts, and part of the reason for that was so many of the blasters are the same. Like, if I'm doing that in that amount of time, how many times do you really want to watch a 70 FPS HP? I've been playing too much
the
Magic.
Pokemon and Magic, it's bleeding through.
How many times do you want to watch a 70 FPS blaster being fired over and over again? It's we know what it does. If it does something weird for some reason, sure. So I considered a lot of that redundant and realized that reviews could be crammed down to this short time period, which wound up making more work, not less. But I'm curious what your approach has been, Anthony, and maybe how it has changed to doing reviews over time as you've sort of developed realizations about what that actually looks like?
Yeah, for reviews for me, unless I'm either I do think reviews can drive views if you're first. Like if you're like one of the very first, like when we got the double punch in Canada first, that was a rare time where I think, yeah, that was worth it for me to do that video. Like the revenue from that video paid for 2 double punches. What money I was in. But like that was cool, right? But it was great. I I had one and I took one to the States and like raffled it off at like a thing because I had like they weren't in the States yet. So that was kind of fun. So but like unless it's special, and then otherwise, so it has to be either special, something that I think is cool. I did a review from a hotel room, not my fanciest review, but on the Venom Pro, because you know what? I thought it was a lot cooler than I thought it would be. So it was kind of exciting. I opened it up and like playing around with it, I'm like, oh, this is really fun. Like I kind of want to throw my opinion in the ring. Like nothing really new, but I mean, reviews are also like we all have like different critics that we listen to or whatever too. So like for those who might want my take, if it's something that I think is really cool for people, I'll do it. And then the other thing is if someone sends me something, I try to prioritize that as a review because I like being sent things. I'm more fussy about that than I used to be, or I'm lying. Did I just say I would review a basketball? Yeah, I did. Watch for that video coming soon. I was just so amused. I was so amused that someone was reaching out to me about reviewing a basketball. I was like, yeah, I guess, sure. I'll relate it to Nerf somehow, and I'll do that review. I am very open, I think, about like if you send me a toy, I like toys, and I will generally talk about them. Like I'm always pretty, most of the stuff that I do is like 99% of it is like I'm not paid apart from like the free sample. So I feel no great obligation to be like, it's not like a commercial. I'm not being paid to do a commercial for a thing. I'm getting a thing. They're getting, in my mind, I'm in marketing, like they're getting a heck of a deal. They're giving me like something that their cost on it is, $20 to $40, and they're getting like an ad with like, right. Not the biggest audience, but a very devoted audience. So like, if I don't like it, I don't mind saying I don't like it. I'm not the meanest reviewer anyway, whether it's been sent to me or not. Like, but I've never had to feel too morally conflicted about, like, I was pretty kind about the N series stuff when it came out. I mean, obviously, like, I was excited to go down to Hasbro HQ. That was awesome. But like over time, even in the early videos, I was like, I don't know that these darts are better than Adventure Force waffles. And over time, I'm like, yeah. And over time, I like the darts kind of less and less because I'm like, I wish that they had lived up or even were as good as like green waffles or whatever. But like, I'm pretty honest about that. But I don't look back at like the videos I did after going to Hasbro HQ with like, I don't feel any sort of inner shame or anything. Like I was excited. I run for a lot of birthday parties I use for kids who are like 8 to 10. I do an all N series loadout for them because generally like I don't have to worry about them priming stuff. I think Hasbro made a really boneheaded decision not making those stupid magazines like ambidextrous, like flippable. Oh, right. Because like loading those magazines backwards is terrible because the darts jam all up. But anyway,
right? Yeah, the ultra magazines had the same problem.
Yeah, but like generally, I don't know, they've been pretty good. Like there's a little bit more pop to them. The darts hold up marginally better than Nerf Elite darts.
So you mentioned having a dedicated audience, and you're in marketing as well. So like who is your audience? Like, who do you see as your audience? Who do you envision yourself speaking to when you're making a review?
I think it's a super wide swing between people who like are my age and kids who are like probably preteen. Like, and I think that's like, it's so hard to tell with YouTube because the ages aren't accurate. But my guess would be like, my guess would be probably the larger chunk of that would be the younger kids, like just given from like comments and stuff. And I've had a lot of like, I've met like in the city that I'm in, like I've a few kids, like I've had kids like come up to me when I've like done events, and they're like, oh, like everyone in my class watches your, like subscribes to your channel. So like I try to be conscious of that too when I'm doing stuff. Like I think it's part of not being like too critical about some things, because I know that like it's a very diverse audience, and like I do struggle sometimes with how much to assume someone knows. I struggle with that every video, because like we all get tired of talking about, like, even though you're saying like 70 FPS is like how fast, like as the speed, the general speed, or like how many times you review a Strife. But for somebody that might be their first video they're ever seeing, but like you can't do everything over and over again. But yeah, I feel like my two main audiences are like people our age and like really, really smaller kids. So
see, you mentioned the not knowing about how much someone really knows thing. That's something that like I've gotten to be very aware of over time, over stuff. So we had like a local Nerf arena they used to attend regularly. And so despite, hobby opinion, for example, Ultra was actually quite popular with parents, because it's like, I can buy this for my kid, the darts don't break, and little Timmy seems to be happy with it, and it seems to shoot okay. Or like Vortex discs, I'd still see them being used, or like Rival. The kids don't understand the FPS metrics of the thing, and the parent assumes the range claim is correct. I remember one time back when the Ultra 1 was the only blaster out at the time, mind you. I was like in a toy aisle, and there was like some parents trying to buy something for their kid. They were looking at buying the Ultra 1. I had just seen all the bad reviews. We had just had the Nexus Pro and all this other stuff, and there was a bunch of other stuff on the shelf, and they're like, I was just saying, if this is going to be a birthday present, I'd more recommend this, because this one isn't quite well liked, and a lot of the claims on the box are incorrect. I said it as nicely as I could, and I remember to this day how mean the response I got was. I got basically yelled at, and they asked for like a store clerk to come and try and escort me out, and they shouted at me, how dare I question what was on the box, because legally that they can't lie, and that likely Hasbro, as a company as large as them, would not lie, and if it says it shoots 90 feet, it shoots 90 feet, and that I'm a liar, and I'm like weird. They like had this weird emotional like meltdown, tried to get me sent out of the store. They got themselves in trouble instead, but I was just like, hey, these range claims legally don't have to actually be correct. If your kid might enjoy this a little bit more, because I didn't want the kid to be disappointed. I put it as nicely as I could, and instead I got met with like all this vitriol, because apparently it was that day I understood the average consumer puts a lot of faith in Hasbro and what they claim on the box. Because I've seen this experience a lot.
You mentioned wanting the kid to have a good experience, and that when I started my channel, when I started Family Foam Sport, that was a big part of my mentality. Is I was like, if I can reach, my goal is I want to try to reach parents specifically, and I think I finally learned that YouTube is not the platform to do that on. But the goal was to reach them, to try to encourage purchase decisions that would benefit kids, because those are the people who actually have the money, who are actually making those decisions. And if I can head them towards better quality products that are aimed appropriately at like the age group or like what the kids are trying to do, then I can make a difference in that way. So I like being aware of who your audience is, and trying to gear your content in a way that heads people in good directions is such a challenge. And like, if we're trying to think about like, why is it that we're doing reviews? There's the side of, what does it do for my channel? What does it do for my metrics? What does it do for my like place in the algorithm? And then there's the side of like, what is the actual impact that it's having on people who see it? Is it my role to be trying to sell things for these companies, or am I getting something in return for doing that work for them? And maybe I am. Maybe part of that is monetary. Maybe part of that is fulfillment of like improving people's experience in a hobby that I care about. I don't know, like what are your thoughts on that? Like, what is it that you really want to get? You being any of you, honestly, but
Actually,
Anthony in particular, like, what do
I
you
was
want to
gonna
get out of
say,
that? Yeah,
well,
Vile.
on my side, it's funny. I go at it at such a different angle because I said I wanted to get away from reviews. I
Well, right,
looked
of
at
course.
what I did, and this kind of goes back to sort of the hatred for the in series from the hobby, and I looked at it in a different view of the consumer doesn't know about us. The typical parent, the typical kids out there, most of them don't know anything about the hobby. And I've seen reviewers who talk negatively about how, oh, I'm trying to look out for the consumers and they need to know how terrible this product was. And it was really weird just seeing that attitude. And a lot of times I look at it in the sense of these are consumers who aren't on the platform. They're not on YouTube. They're not, like you said, they're not looking at those reviews. They're not checking this. They're buying something because it's on the shelf and they're trusting what's on the box. And my theory was, you know what? If I don't come at it with an angry view and I look at it more of, hey, here's this blaster and here's what you can do with it. Because you're going to get kids who have these and they may have had them for years and then they find out that they can mod their stuff or they hear about this type of things and they get introduced and there's a video of somebody who's not angry, who's not mad, and instead says, hey, here's this thing. Did you know you could do this with it? And it becomes way harder or stronger or whatever. And you show it in a way that it's inclusive, right? You're bringing them in because that's the point is if you want more people to join the hobby and you want them to be excited to be into it, you have to show them what they can do with what they already own. Because repeatedly people like Chalo has even said the best blaster you have is the one you own.
Yep.
And it was really weird when I put out my own video about modding and somebody said, at that point, you should just buy a Nexus. And I'm like, you're literally telling somebody to buy another product after they already own a product. This isn't a review. This is a mod video. It was really strange. And I think it's just, everybody sort of comes at it with their own point of view. And I think it's a good place because different opinions, different places, whether it's through the mod, whether it's through a review, whether it's highly critical or whether it's not nearly as critical. I think everybody has their stance and their place, and each of us is probably going to influence or capture somebody's attention some way. And the point is to introduce them into it any way possible. And I think that it's not a bad place no matter how you do it. Personally, whether you're doing it for financial gain yourself for your channel. I mean, obviously a lot of us would love to have a financial gain and be able to pay for this stuff, but a lot of the stuff doesn't really give you anything even if at all. So we do it because we enjoy it, not because we're trying to make a ton of money out of it. Again, whether it's like what I do or a review or whatever. So at least that was sort of just my take on it. I think that there are so many ways.
And there's so much value, I think, to the kind of evergreen content that like you're making with a mod video or Shalo makes with all of his like breakdown and reassembly videos.
Or the range videos that he does.
Totally. Because it's like, some of it is like, I feel like a video like yours on Modding the Infinite, that's the kind of video that's going to benefit a kid in 5 years who thrifts one.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah,
For sure.
I remember back in the day, for example, so chronographs weren't really the metric that we measured something by as much or much earlier in the hobby because not everyone had access to them. You had people like Coop doing that and other people. But I remember one of the popular ones and one of the people I'm still lucky to know was Random Shadow, if anyone remembers that channel or has at least heard of that channel. His bread and butter was getting a blaster early. He set out a measuring tape, and then he would fire at a flat angle the blaster.
Okay.
And so he'd get the blaster early, and he'd do range test. His channel grew wildly popular off of that. And the reason it was popular is because the kid might, for example, they've never purchased this blaster. They'd look up X blaster here, range test. And then if they found his video, they could then determine, hey, I want to show up to my buddy's Nerf war with something to counter theirs. Does this thing outrange theirs? Because, you didn't really focus on accuracy back then. Everyone's blaster wasn't hitting a broadside of a barn if you weren't a modder, pretty much. We didn't have scars. We didn't have PCARs. All of this was like theoretical math. We were still thinking 120 FPS was the maximum limit a flywheeler could hit. So, it didn't really matter. It didn't really matter back then. but I remember his content he was making was range tests, and it was very popular for that reason. It wasn't to belittle something because it's like, oh, this one only gets 30 feet, this one got 70 feet. It was just showing this one got 70 feet. Do with that what you will, kind of thing. And then Timmy can go do with what he will with that.
Timmy's
I definitely
back.
think.
I feel like I might have.
Yeah, I interchangeably use different names for fillers, but yeah. I think it's interesting because I've also noticed that reviews definitely do have a lot of weight in how someone will have an opinion on something, but I also think that's something that needs to be used a bit more responsibly, because I've also seen kids in person who feel down on themselves or upset at their parents at receiving a gift because a YouTuber then reviewed something negatively.
Yes.
And the blaster for the battle and the thing they were taking it to, for all intents and purposes, was perfectly serviceable. It was just simply the fact that the review was so scathing that they themselves felt embarrassed around their own friends. And I'm just kind of like, this isn't what that review was out there to achieve. And maybe we should reconsider how we do stuff. Because at the very least, how I remember it at the first time, long form content was, hey, I'm X YouTuber here. I'm sitting in my chair talking to a 240p camera. This is a conversation amongst other hobbyists. Here's my findings. What are your findings? Or here's this blaster. What blaster did you build? It was like a conversation between people within the know. And then eventually the algorithm picked it up, mod videos started blowing up, but we were still making the mods for ourselves, we were still making them for events and other stuff, but other people were peering in on what we were doing for ourselves and what we were having fun with and still enjoying. And then somewhere along the line, whether it be before COVID or after COVID, it then changed to the content is entirely curated around the people who are outside the hobby and us kind of projecting our inside opinions to the outside people. Whereas beforehand, it was us showing the good things that come from the inside and what we do on the inside, getting people interested, and then them choosing to come in. Where it feels like more now we're just outwardly projecting our opinion and then it reaching these ears that are not aware of what we're speaking of, and it just comes off as outwardly overly negative, and I feel like it does more to turn people away than it does to bring people in. At least that's how I feel about it.
I really want to hear your response to that, Anthony. But I just want to interject that I think there is a more wholesome way to give a negative review of a blaster than what we often see. But the algorithm doesn't favor that. The algorithm
absolutely
favors
not.
A blaster broken over a leg or run over with a car. Right?
Yeah, I mean, there was a distinct change in the algorithm around 2016 or 2017 when mod videos suddenly started dropping in views drastically, and anything that was like remotely positive just ceasing to be as viable.
But yeah, Anthony, do you have thoughts on that before we move on to the next section?
Yeah, well, just around reviews. I mean, I agree. I do agree with all of that stuff. Like, there is some responsibility to reviewing something, especially like to be scathing about something if you're not at least thinking of your different audience and what they might be using it for. Like, that's why, honestly, my reviews generally aren't that deep. Like, I really kind of go for, like, I think this is fun. My range tests are like 20 feet. They'll be a little further here because it's easier, but like, it's like, yeah, like it doesn't jam. Like, the big thing that I usually like really care about warning people, I'm like, if something's a jam fest, well, that's no fun for anyone. But like the rest of it, I'm like, to me, it's like, does this feel like a cool blaster? Does it look cool? If someone's at a hobbyist level, they're generally not just watching one review anyway. They're watching a few different reviews. Yeah. They're reading up on it. Like, I would rather keep it more casual. I still remember, like, because starting out, you do, even like as an adult person, I remember getting a Centurion, thinking it was really cool how the like spring gave that like artificial recoil, and then like I don't know, I saw some Drac video where he was just like, it's like one of his most hated things, and I'm like, oh, but I thought it was so cool. What's wrong with me? What am I missing? And like, and I realize now, I'm like, well, I'm not missing anything. Like, it sucks as a like, if I've been doing this for years and I really cared about hitting my targets, of course it's not a cool blaster. But if I want to like, there's no reason you couldn't use a Centurion with your friends as a kid, or even for me as an adult in like a small venue or something, you'd probably get more appreciation for that than using a Venom Pro or something. Like there's, I don't know. I think there is a different there's a different standard too. I think when it comes to like, I think reviewing some of the pro blasters, I think it's fair to put them under a little bit more scrutiny than like
The demands put on that equipment are different than the demands put on the blaster corn.
Yeah,
the whole pro label is a little bit of a mess right now, but I'm sure that'll like eventually straighten itself out.
One
Like,
can hope. One can
figure itself out.
Pros now everything from 130 FPS to like
220
like
300
something,
at this point.
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, I want to move on because we're gonna loop back to this idea too of neutrality and where opinion has a place as opposed to empirical data and information and bias. I want to come back and talk about that a little bit and about how that relates to links to companies. But first, we have a few folks who generously donate to the Foam News Collective through our Ko-Fi page, and one of the perks that they are offered as a result is the opportunity.
Uh-oh.
Whoa, what just happened? Did I disappear for a second?
Yeah, you disappeared for a second.
Weird.
What is going on?
I would say it's a transient power spike because that can happen, but you don't have a graphics card that would have that happen, if I recall what hardware you're running. Yeah.
And he fully disappeared that time.
All right.
That's funny.
Okay.
No,
they're back. They're back.
Okay, my computer just freaked out. I don't know what just happened. I'm going to function with one monitor for the rest of this recording session. It's going to be great. Very important. I need to take a picture of what's going on in this monitor, and maybe I'll slap it up on the...
You could have ran out of VRAM.
I think that's what's happening, but I don't know why that's happening now. But one of my monitors is acting normal, and the other one is super unhappy. Anyway...
I've had that happen with... drivers updates being behind. That
could have something to do with it. Okay, let's keep pushing through in case my other monitor dies at some point, so we can hopefully get through the rest of the recording and I don't have to slap too many things together or switch to my phone. First question from Ghost Armory. As an ABC member, this is not a question, first of all, but as an ABC member, it was exciting listening to your conversation with Beth and Josh from Atlanta Blaster Club for our Foam Razor 2024 event, even with the audio troubles. So, more of a comment than a question, but then it's followed up with a question. For everyone, if you had an opportunity to sit down and have a conversation with anyone, living or past, who would it be and what would you ask?
Well, I mean, I can go first. I feel like a pressure to make it foam related, but I don't know that it would be. I don't
think the question is
a little corny. It'd probably be like my grandparents probably, and I just like ask them more about their lives and just more about them because I don't know, when you're a kid you don't really have you don't have that, like, I don't know, you're more concerned about yourself than them. And if it was foam related, I want to know who was the first one to throw to whoever was technically the first person to ever throw a piece of foam at another person. Let me
it would be interesting to figure that out.
Why they did it.
Yeah. Grim, Val?
But I'm trying to like come up with like some kind of foam answer, but the only response that I can think of would be like something rather macabre. But I'd ask probably one of my past friends, what did they see on the other side? Let them know that they're missed and cared for and whatnot, and then just like, you know, have a conversation with them again. I'm not sure which one specifically I'd choose at this time, but that I know it would be something along those lines because I've definitely had a number of friends who've passed on early, and that would definitely be the thing that I'd probably want to know. There could be any number of other things I'm sure that you could ask, like you could speak to some historical figure or something else. I don't care about that. People and friends are much more important to me. I'd much rather check in on like a friend that I can't speak with anymore and see if they're doing fine and how things are going.
I like that a lot.
That's what I'd ask.
like that a lot. Vile, you got one?
I do not actually. I cannot think of anyone, because there's an interesting one of don't meet your heroes.
Oh, it's so true.
kind of a
Yeah.
thing. And it's like there's so many people I would have probably said that I'm like, you know what?
I probably don't.
I don't know if I
actually,
would want to talk to that person because my personal opinion about them might very well change. So I don't know. Maybe that's no one.
Yeah, no, I
As
think
weird as that
I have to
sounds.
roll with Grim and Anthony. It's probably going to be a friend or a family member, who I didn't get to connect enough with, or maybe who was only around in my life when I was too young to have real conversations with them. So, thanks for that question.
Asking the deep ones.
Yeah, thanks for that question,
Yeah.
Ghost Armory. Hope our macabre exploration was what you were hoping for there. Colin, aka Go Slow Taco, has your increase in long form content come from a okay? So we tackled some of this, but there's a part at the end that I really want to get to. Has your increase in long form content come from a change in perspective for how you want to make content, or is there something about YouTube that you don't get from TikTok? I'm curious actually about TikTok too. I haven't been paying any attention to TikTok whatsoever for a while. Are you still posting to it? Is that doing anything
Barely.
for you?
Barely. My channel is basically stalled out, and in the last year, even though I'll gain 100, I might, in a couple of days, I might gain 100. I'll also lose 100 or more. Right. I assume it's cleaning up bots. Like, I don't think too many people actively go on following. I'm guessing it's more of a account deletion or bot cleanup or whatever. So my account, it had a whole bunch of rapid growth, completely stopped. None of my YouTube videos, always without fail, rare exceptions, always outperform TikTok. And the people engaging with it on TikTok it's just like one thing in a scroll. Like, it's not likely that it's someone, I won't say never, but it's not likely that it's someone who actually is like, oh, that's cool, I want to learn more about it. Like, they're just, so it's not, I don't think it's the channel for me. I keep it because it has a high number on it. And if I went to a toy fair or something like that, it helps to have it if I want to because my YouTube threshold's not high enough for a press pass, but the TikTok thing is. But and there's no monetization for Canadians, and there's just no traffic. And if I don't feel like anyone's watching it, even going through the motions of reposting YouTube stuff just barely feels worth it. So that's my TikTok answer.
A little off the topic, but fun fact about Grimz and TikTok: I'm permanently banned off of TikTok for no apparent reason.
Oh, that's fun.
I signed in with my phone number for the first time to create a Grimz Nerfworks account. There was already an account existing. I assume it was the previous account. I suspended or undid everything, reset it. All I did was set it up to be the Grimz Nerfworks account. Followed Beret. It then errored out and wouldn't let me follow him and gave me an error. I pressed it again, and it says you are now permanently banned from TikTok.
Wow.
You cannot appeal this ban. That was my experience with TikTok.
And
my
that's
phone
my
number is
experience
permanently
with Twitter,
banned.
so I don't know. I'm banned off of Twitter now.
Wow.
I don't know.
That's probably for the best.
Yeah, the Vile Mods Twitter account is completely, it's just a dead channel because they just do not let me sign back in for whatever
I
reason.
don't know if it was whoever previously owned the phone number was up to weird things, or if Bray is somehow involved. But Bray, here's where you get involved. Me following you got me permanently banned from TikTok.
So there we go. Beret. There we go. Why you got to do that, Brett? Why's it got to be like that? Why you got to get Grim banned from TikTok?
Wow.
Okay. Colin also asks, did you ever hear from the Mr. Beast crew before or after they used your video in the Gelfire Mythic promotion?
Yeah, I mean it's been long. It's been long enough now. They reached out to me beforehand about.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So and then not a whole lot after. So yeah, that was a purposeful. I think what it was, they couldn't actually get the. They basically needed they wanted a video like that to kick it off, but they needed one they could buy the rights to. in order to use it for an ad. Because like that meme existed, but like with a bunch of, not everyone that they could reach. So,
Right.
But yeah, that was cool. So yeah, no,
That's
they had reached out. I did not get a Mr. Beast briefcase of money, but I did get
Rude.
a little money. So
Rude.
I can't complain.
To date, the only gel blaster I own is one of those, the Mr. Beast Gelfire Mythics that has that I bought for $1 at the state surplus place because someone tried to take it on an airplane, I guess.
Oh,
The hopper doesn't hold on quite right, but it's a good prop every
No.
time something gel related comes up.
that's
The
good-
only
good to
thing
have
I can
one.
remember Gelfire wise is like I couldn't tell you the names of any of the blasters. I just remember that there's one that looks like a sniper rifle, and the amount of times Beret tagged me out with the Gelfire Mythic front-loading rival at the Out of Darts warehouse. I was shocked how many times he got me tagged out. Bring up Brett again. He was lethal with
that's
that.
great.
So
great.
that was back during the Gelfire Mythic challenge or whatever. So they were like
Gel-
getting out a bunch of videos.
Take
but,
that tag and take that ban.
Yeah.
Every
Bray's
time,
been
every
making it
time
personal
Beret
before
tags you,
FNC.
every time Beret tags you, you get banned from another social media platform.
Exactly.
Emilio asks, as a frequent thrifter, your thrifting videos are my favorite. What do you consider your best thrifting find? Also curious how thrifting videos do on YouTube compared to your other content.
Oh, they do. They, as we all like, they do fine. They actually do. Well, I guess I do understand. I mean, I watch some of them too. I wouldn't say I do like the most in-depth ones, but I try to flip on my phone if it's been a while. If I have a hunch there might be something juicy in the aisles. They usually do really well, or like pretty well. Like I usually do them just short form. As far as like the best ones, if we're gonna say from an actual thrift store, best is a tough one because I've definitely been very lucky and found a lot of stuff that I really am glad I have in my collection. But a Max Force Razor Beast with the chain in perfect condition, I thought was
Oh my
like
God.
a really cool on the thrift store. Like I don't know how like thrift store kids like who just rove the thrift stores in packs and destroy all the toys. I don't know how they didn't wreck that thing. I also found a Marauder sword one time with like an almost perfect shape, but like the
That's
Razor
good. Those
Beast.
do not last.
No, and it's such a cool sword. Like I'm happy to have it. It's weirdly massive. You could really hurt somebody with that thing, which I think was the problem.
Oh yeah.
And then I think if you're being a little loose on thrifting off Facebook Marketplace, for a steal, I got a Supermax 5000 with like every attachment.
Oh, okay.
Which-
That's pretty sick.
So that was kind of, it was like a bin of like a whole bunch of old stuff and like old ammo and arrows and
Wow.
that's always fun.
Are
it
you
takes a lot
familiar-
to. Oh, sorry. go ahead.
Are you familiar with the recent manta ray business that's been happening?
No.
There was a purple version of the manta ray that is extremely, extremely rare. And
okay.
someone just found one at the thrift store for like $5. Someone on our Discord.
It was 10.
It was like $10.
There are like 3 known in existence.
I thought there were 4 because there's a photo with 2 of them.
I don't know because I keep hearing different stories, and I even saw like an old Reddit post because I did a little digging on it.
Because like the
And
blue ones are already rare.
The blue ones are rare because the plastics would break.
Yeah.
The plastics were just unfortunately very brittle as they aged. The purple ones, the backstory of them is also kind of murky as to why there are purple ones. There's theories that they were engineering samples. There's theories that even I think it's the Razor Beast, which has a purple crank on it, right?
Yep.
I think there's talk that they were injection molded and they were using that plastic as opposed to the teal color. Anyways, Foam Blast actually was the only people who owned one, and that was the only one that they knew of but there was word of a few other ones actually existing, and I've seen it in person. Wallcom did a video on it, and Addy had brought it, so there is a video that you can actually watch. One of them popped up on eBay recently, so that was the second one that we at least know for a fact had popped up. The day after that one sold, someone found one at a thrift store for $10. In
really good condition,
almost mint condition. And it was like, wait a minute. So like all three have just been found of the three known to exist. There's also talk of a fourth one that apparently has been destroyed, or one that was like completely, I don't remember if it was destroyed in a war or destroyed whatever. Anyways, it's sort of like a weird theory. So yeah, this has all been happening in the, what's that?
How much did it sell for? Sorry to interrupt.
The one that was on eBay?
Yeah.
It was like 700 something. I don't remember what the actual price. It was a lot, like, but yeah, it sold. I don't know what Michelle and Addy got theirs for, because they got it a while ago.
Had that a long time.
They've had that for a very long time.
They've had it for a very long time. I think it's been in like the This Week in Nerf like background if you check for like ages.
Yeah.
Like
even the video that Wallcom did was from years and years ago.
Yeah.
It was like when he was living in a whole totally different house and a whole bunch of stuff. But
early.
A lot of stuff's been weirdly popping off with the manta ray. So
I can't top the manta ray story, but as far as experiences with thrifting, so in Kansas, they just immediately, or at least per last time I checked, they immediately destroy any Nerf blasters they receive, because apparently policy dictates that they could harm someone. So I can't thrift. So my thrift story comes to you from Ryan of SFI. This is the story of how Ryan became the king of Washington. He apparently went to like some random like thrift store. He walks in, he randomly sees a handle in the thrift bucket full of Nerf blasters, and he pulls it out. And it's that limited edition, like World of Warcraft tie-in, like axe.
Oh my god!
That Nerf did, foam axe, and it's in mint condition. And his friends, who are all locals, were like, "You just pulled the sword from the proverbial stone. You are now, I dub thee Ryan of SFI, King of Washington."
Amazing.
And I've seen it in person. It's still in crazy good condition. Very, very wild, because it was just like.
Cool.
He had a photo of it at one point, I think, and it's just like perfectly propped up like a Excalibur sword in the stone style.
Oh my god, that's funny.
I used to do thrifting videos for a while there, and I actually decided to stop because I was in San Diego at the time, and San Diego actually has a very good thrifting scene.
Yeah.
And it's an area that is quite nice all year round. So those thrift stores are constantly circulating blasters. And I actually got to a point that I felt so bad, because I was like, this feels like it's just rubbing it in at one point, because there's kids that, they don't have anything, like Grimz said, right? Like some places are just barren for good thrifting. And I pulled a $5 crossbow, the Kenner crossbow. I've pulled multiple vintage blasters for, few bucks here and there. I've
paid by the weight.
Yeah, like pay by weight. I've been able to get a lot of things, and that's sort of like how I'm getting vintage. These two were actually given to me by other people, but a lot of my old vintage ones were ones that I found for a few bucks, $5 here, $3 there.
We're also some of the only people who care about them. So it's okay
true,
too.
Yeah,
right.
That is true. But like I go to thrift stores and I'll see you'll see those people, and they walk next to an item. If they think it's worth something, they put their hand on it and then they pull out their phone. And then what they're doing is they're searching eBay for the item that they have. And I've seen people in the toy aisles doing that type of stuff. So even though we might be interested, if they
stuff's worth nothing.
Yeah, if they see something and it's like, oh, hey, this crossbow's worth, $150 on eBay,
right.
they'll grab that right away,
If there's one Nerf enthusiast who's bought a manta ray for $700, then the next person that finds a manta ray who looks it up on eBay is going to be like, oh, I can get $700 for this.
Yeah, exactly.
I can tell you from someone who comes from the barren lands, places where you can't. Back when I was still newer in the hobby, to me, rare or vintage was like not a Maverick, but like stuff like a Stampede or a Vulcan or a Centurion, because that's just how hard to
Listen,
not actually
right now,
surprisingly not, but like my like bucket list when I was younger was like a Centurion, a Stampede, and a Vulcan. and a raven.
Yeah.
Those were like my most prized, most valuable, cannot find in state.
Right now,
blasters.
my local thrift stores have a whole bunch of really interesting stuff because I donated it. Anyway, that's a different conversation. Last question today from Iron Gopher. Maritime, in no particular order, what are your top 3 movies?
Oh, top 3 movies. I like that though. I'm always going to give a big shout out to Evil Dead 2. That was like,
yes.
I saw that when I was really young.
My guy.
And it was honestly like growing up in the sticks. It was the first time I saw a movie that was like, I feel like it was the first time I saw a movie like that. That was just so intentional, like, or so campy and so fun. Like, I enjoyed every minute of it. It like launched like me seeking out like a whole new like genre of movies. I'm always going to be partial to The Last Starfighter. What kid doesn't dream of like a video game being an actual test to go pilot like a spaceship? I rewatched it as an adult, and it's like sometimes with some movies, I almost wish I just never watched it again because it was so much grand. Like, it wasn't bad, but it was so much grander in my head than than when I rewatched it. But I still I do love it. So Evil Dead 2, Last Starfighter. I don't know. Then I'm gonna give like a just a random shout out to any video at the local store that I shouldn't have been able to rent, but the clerks didn't care about a young kid renting. So I just like renting those inappropriate movies. So a general shout out to all the inappropriate movies a young lad should not have seen and did.
Well, so go Evil Dead 2. I saw that for the first time after sneaking out of my house in high school at a midnight showing. Great experience. The follow-up question for everyone: if there is one piece of any media everyone should experience, what is it and why? Merzbow Pulse Demon, because that's an annoying answer. No, maybe like I have trouble with a question like this, partly because I'm a musician and I take music so seriously. And so,
I was gonna say that's a very open-ended question when you say media, because as people who've done, like you and me, we both have dealt with music. Film is really important,
right?
And like media is so vague.
I feel very strongly that art and creativity belong in contexts, and so I don't think that there is a universal thing that everyone needs to experience. But if I'm just going to take this as an excuse to shout out media that I don't think enough people have experienced, I would say that everybody should give some weird music a chance, like Sheena Ringo's Kakusama Kuri no Hana, or Sleepy Time Grill Museum's discography, or a Radiohead album you haven't heard before, like a later one. Anyone else got anything?
my answer is like I thought on it for a bit because I'm not really a movie guy. I don't watch many movies, and I don't watch very many TV shows, but I do watch a lot of anime. So this one is kind of like a cliche answer and is kind of not necessarily one thing but multiple things. Evangelion, and by Evangelion I mean all of it. I mean the TV show, the alternate ending movie, and the Rebuild series, because the show is considered an avant-garde anime, and by avant-garde it means the story is there, but that's not the focus. The focus is like this: the author was going through like a mental health period.
Right.
So the original stuff is like him in his depressive state, imperfect people and all of their flaws, and what is the meaning of life. And then the rebuilds are him post coming out of that, essentially. The good ending of the story, finding that meaning in life, overcoming it. And like, as a person who has mental health issues, the amount of stuff I gleaned off of experiencing these things, I'll tell you, it's not, if you're focusing on those aspects, it's probably not something you should watch if you're not doing well mentally. But like, what I gleaned from it, life perspective wise, was a lot. If you're actively searching for those avant-garde elements that it has in it about mental health struggles and like life, its meaning, purpose, people's flaws, the human experience, it was very satisfying to watch from start to completion.
Well, that's what
because you see the progression through these characters of a person's life and their experience with life in that way, because of the amount of time in between the two as well.
That's what I'm talking about with that, like having that background and context for a piece of media like that really adds a lot to its meaning.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else before we move on?
I'll throw in a quick thing to like go see a. They're not always my cup of tea, but go see like an interactive theater experience. Go see like an old classic movie where people are gonna like shout along with the lines and like anything that would be annoying with a new movie. But go see it with an old one that you've seen a bunch of times. Like that's always really fun. I remember seeing. Oh my goodness, what was it? It was.
It's almost like the Rocky Horror Picture Show ones that they'll always pull up, and it's everybody's like getting into it. People are dressing in character and stuff like that.
Like going to see even like a Terminator 2 again at like a going to like a cheap theater or something. That's always fun. I did also see Evil Dead 2 the musical that had like an interactive like blood row seating, and that was really fun. Like, but just like. I don't know, like cool interactive shows where you're like actually like doing something with the audience can be kind of fun.
Yeah. Okay. With that, I think it's time for our hobby trivia game. As always, we will have 3 questions for you, multiple choice. If you're able to get 2 out of 3 of them right, you will win an opportunity for our raffle winner, Grim Reaper 2458, to get to ask a free question of our next podcast guest, who is not quite scheduled, but if I get the person that I think we're going to have, it's going to be a big one. And if not, it'll still be really cool, because everybody in this hobby that we get on the podcast is really cool. So that's fun.
Also, KT, little bit out of order, but do you mind if I take the last one? This one in particular, I like.
Sure.
I like final question.
Absolutely, yeah,
right, cool.
Absolutely.
I've called my first dibs.
Yeah, totally. So these questions we have for you, I think that I was going on a pun on the name Maritime Foam when I wrote the name of this, but again, I wrote it like a month ago. But we're calling it Foamland because we'll be discussing Nerf-themed attractions.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Do you, Vile, you want to go first, and I'll go second? Then maybe.
Sure.
And we'll go third.
Yeah, I'm gonna struggle with probably one of these answers, trying to make sure I pronounce it correctly.
Oh, I can go first if you want. Not that I'm gonna do better, but I wrote it down at least. Here,
I can just go first. I'll do it. Let's just wing it. All right. Way back in episode 20, we covered the grand opening of Brazilian theme park Beto Carreiro, world's new Nerf theme land, featuring Nerf and Super Soaker themed rides and attractions. What is this theme land called? Is it A, Nerf Foam Funland, B, Nerf Mania, or C, Mundo Maravilhoso de Nerf?
Something like that.
Something like that.
I'm gonna go with C.
You're gonna go with C?
Mundo
Maravilhoso de Nerf?
I just love it so much.
Well, unfortunately, you would be wrong. It would actually be B, Nerf Mania.
That was the sensible choice.
Was the sensible choice. I remember that one because I think I was the one that covered that.
I think you did that story, yeah.
Yeah, I think I did that story.
Yeah.
I remember seeing a bit about it, but I couldn't remember for the life of me what the name of it was.
The Foam News Collective channel, the Foam News Collective Instagram still follows Beto Carreiro World, just in case there's follow-ups on that. And when they post stories, they post like 50 stories at a time.
Oh, God.
Just like all the time. Just like random clips from around the park. It's kind of wild. Though the other 2 names I just made up.
All right, I'll try to pick more on being right and less on being pleased with the name.
All right, question number 2. In the last few years, Nerf has collaborated with Kingsman International to launch a series of Nerf action experience locations around the world. Indoor locations with Nerf-themed games and play areas. Where was the first Nerf action experience located? Was it A, Manchester, United Kingdom, B, Beijing, China, or C, Marina Bay, Singapore?
Ooh. I will say United Kingdom.
Why?
What makes you say United Kingdom?
I don't know. I think you know what I do know. In my purely guessing, I think because I heard it was like Kingsman Entertainment, I'm like, that sounds kind of British.
Yeah.
But Singapore seems like the most likely as far as like.
You are correct. It's
Where that
Singapore.
would be.
Congratulations.
So I should go on what makes logical sense, not on wordplay.
Manchester
All right.
was the first European location. And
Okay.
Beijing is opening next year, but Singapore was the first test bed, and we actually got our earliest video of some of the Nerf action experience locations came from some of the Singaporeans well known in the hobby.
Wasn't like Piggy one of them?
Yeah,
I think?
Piggy went to an event with some of the other folks.
I was going to say.
Cool.
Took video. All right.
All right. Question 3. Nerf's Dart Tag World Championships were held annually from 2009 to 2011, but only the final one of those events was held within a theme park in Orlando, Florida. At which of the following parks was the event held? A. Winaldo City, B. Universal Orlando Resort, or C. Walt Disney World?
Slight correction. A is called Wanadu City.
Wanadu City. Okay.
Well, I do like that name.
Don't let the funny names draw you in.
So I'm like, I just see a squirrel. I want to go there. I'm gonna say I don't. For all the clips I've watched about that, I don't remember where. I'll say Universal.
Why?
What makes you say Universal?
I'll say Wanadu.
No, why?
Maybe. I want. You know what?
Don't go
what I
with
meant
funny
was
names.
the funny name. That's the problem.
what I meant was I want to do Disney as my answer.
Okay, you would be
That's
correct
what
to
I-
just see Walt Disney World. Wanadu City. So for pretext,
That was my universal answer. Is I want to do Disney. So like, I got it first try, guys.
yeah, first try. All right.
Easy.
So for background, Wanadu City, covered in a recent video by Defunct Land, was a mini city where kids could act out regular adult activities. It closed in 2011, the same year that the final Dart Tag World Championships was held. Walt Disney World, however, includes the ESPN Worldwide World of Sports Complex, where the final Dart Tag Championship was held.
I see. Cool.
So congratulations, you got 2 out of 3. Grim Reaper 2458, our friend, frequent focus of our community crosshairs. Be sure to reach out if you have a question. I'll be announcing the next guest as soon as I have that available.
I want to do that again soon.
You did great. You did great.
That was
You
funny.
did great, yeah.
Yeah, Wanadu City is weird. Wanadu City was like, there was like a chain, and the Defunct Land video is really interesting. There was a lot of drama between different similar
You know
concepts.
what I want to do? I want to do another trivia where we have Brett on. There we go. Shoehorned it in.
Perfect.
Yep.
Nailed it.
Nailed it.
All right. To close this out, I want to talk a little bit more about specifically working with companies, which is something that is being talked about a lot right now in the hobby, particularly with what's going on with Siren and their kind of different
Siren ads.
approach. What?
all those zillion Siren ads.
Yeah. Well, exactly, right? So they have a very different approach than we've seen in the past with company to creator relationships, at least in this hobby, right? What they do isn't unusual in marketing in general, but this hobby, I think, has been kind of shocked by that approach. Before we get into that, though, I wanna ask if you would sort of outline your experience working with companies, whether it's just having them send you product or having actual partnerships with them or flying to Hasbro headquarters.
Sure. So most, like 95% of it has just been, hey, we'd like to send you this product. Are you interested? And, you know, unlike when I started the channel where like any company that was like, we'll send you this gel blaster, I'd be like, someone's sending me a toy. I'm a little bit more reserved on that now. I haven't really done, as far as paid pieces, there has not been much at all. I did do one kind of paid video. A company, it was gel blasters early on. They wanted like a little like backyard family playing, and you know I paid. I took it wasn't a ton of money, but I took the money that it was, and like, you know, my daughter and another kid that helped, and my friend Matt. You know, everyone got a few bucks, and like we shot gel blasters at each other for the afternoon, and then I did a review. And even in that review, it wasn't so much money that I was like, well, I can't possibly, like, it still was. I don't know. They got lots of value out of it. I did all that.
Did they put restrictions on what you could say in the review?
No.
Like, was it something? It was
No restrictions at all. And like, honestly, if you're like, ethically, would you do an ad that like you? And I'm like, sure. If someone wanted to pay me like commercial money to be like, hi, I'm Maritime Foam, and like, what a fun time. Sure, but it would have to be like a real commercial. I wouldn't want to muddy the lines of like, here's a bunch of money to do something that looks like a casual review. I'd almost rather it was like very openly a commercial. So no, they didn't put restrictions on it either. And like, it was pretty run of the mill gel blaster stuff. I think in the review I would have said like, I'm like, yeah, it's kind of fun to play with. Although, you know, Matt and we kind of pretended these were semi-auto by the end of it because we were all just hiding behind cover, like pretty standard review stuff. But like, they gave me like $500, I think, to do that, and I was like, yes, I will do that. That sounds fun.
Yeah.
Just for the experience of it. And like, I've been asked about that a couple other times, and I've kind of said no, because like after you like take the time, and it's been for less money too, where I'm like, really, it has to be like a few $100s to make it worth like giving some friends a few bucks and like taking a day and maybe buying some props,
pizza or
like,
whatever.
It's got to be. I did it that first time because like I think what I kept was like maybe $100, and of that I like bought some food. Like that was fun to do as like check. I did that. Fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Hasbro and the other kind of like bigger thing would be the Hasbro thing. Certainly, like there wasn't like a monetary like here is a check, but there was like, you know, like a Amex gift card for food, and like the, you know, Uber voucher, and like fly you down, and, you know, meals and all that. So like from like a monetary value, like it's funny, I was reached out about going, and I was like, oh, Rhode Island is, well, it's about 6 or 7 hour drive for me, but I guess I would go. And they're like, no, we would fly you there. I'm like, oh, cool. All right, I'm in. Well, I mean, I'm a big enough nerd. Like, if you're telling me you're going to show me Nerf's new blaster line
100%.
early, I probably would have made a weekend or like a overnight trip out of that for sure.
Yeah.
Like, especially to like see the headquarters and stuff like that was super fun. Like touring around and seeing like old Transformers molds and like G.I. Joe molds,
cool.
and like them painting.
That's
like
cool.
we couldn't take footage of that stuff, but like showing us the machines where they like print the prototype G.I. Joes and like different parts, and even like Nerf blasters of like seeing their printed and resin, like all the variations of the Infinite, like the motorized Infinite that was the first, what it was going to be at first until like they did testing. Like that was worth so much to me. Like that was like probably one of the cooler, thanks to the channel, things that I've gotten to do. So, you know, so, and because of that, I think I did reviews on, I've done more N-Series reviews than a lot of other like newer lines, just because like anything they sent me, I'm like, well, I feel like it's the least I can do after being flown down to like feel like I've covered each of the ones I was sent. So
Do they? And they don't. They didn't have any other than there being an embargo. They didn't have any expectation on you doing anything in particular with it, right?
No restrictions. And actually, I will say, and I found, and I think anyone else who was there would agree, they actually, like, kind of going into it, the PR person kind of warned us, like, you'll have X amount of questions, please stay on topic for N series, and kind of like, talked about some light rails on the conversation. I was like, oh, okay, like this feels like a real press thing. But they were actually very candid and conversational when we chatted. Like they gave us a lot of time. They went through a presentation. They gave us a lot of very candid conversation around why certain things ended up where, even older blasters and some mechanics that they're like, yeah, we kept this mechanic and put it in lots of others. And like, yeah, we know this one wasn't as good, so we didn't do that again. Like it was, it definitely humanized everything. It kind of like, I would say, I would honestly say, like, I've always tried to remember of like behind all these blasters, even the ones that we're like going to get all angry about, somebody was probably trying to do a good job.
100%.
Probably putting their heart into it. It's like when people, they poop all over the Nerf Pro stuff. I'm like, they're trying to do something cool. I don't think Nerf Pro is like their most lucrative idea that they're going to do. Like they're trying to do a cool thing. Like, yeah, they're trying to make money, but like there are hobby people who are involved. And do I like everything about them? No, but like be kind, I guess. So so that even furthered it for me, like talking to the people behind it. It was interesting because there was kind of a mix of like, you could tell that there were like, some people are like more into and attuned with the hobby than others, even in that space. But like everybody wanted us to like them. Like they were, it wasn't like they were just like they were really excited at how like to see people use them. So it was cool to, I don't know, it was a good reminder for me too, to just remember people are generally like, I know people like to be like, Hasbro doesn't care. I'm like, I don't, there's lots of things they don't care about for sure. I don't think they care about Pro nearly as much as everyone wants them to care because it's not as lucrative.
Well, but saying Hasbro, that means a lot of different things. You've got the people who are doing the accounting, you've got the people who are designing blasters, you've got the people who are in charge of the people designing blasters, you have the people doing the marketing, right? Like all of these different groups of people have different things that they care about and that they're interested in achieving.
My favorite thing I saw when I was down there, I think I took a picture of it, was like they were talking about a feedback session they did with kids of early N series prototypes, and there was like a sticky note, and it was like 11-year-old, and like quotes, it was like, cool gun, shoots hard, shoots far. It was like, yep. And we're talking about like the pinpoint or something, right? Like, right. I don't know. Like we're so caught up in ourselves sometimes that we're just like, like we kind of matter, but like we don't matter the most. Like it's all we're part of the ecosystem, but like they want to please that kid left a more important review for them than probably we ever will.
Of course.
By saying cool gun shoots far.
Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely think the distinction between Hasbro the company and the engineers itself is an important thing to note, but also an important thing to understand because we have a similar situation going on with, as people might know at this point, I'm a big D2 fan. At this point now, people who do content on D2 will specifically distinguish between Bungie, the company, and Destiny, the developers, because they understand it's like, in these recent failings, they're like, hey, the devs wanted to do this, higher up said this. Or I remember an important conversation I had with Blasterface just in Discord, and he gave me a quote, which I also believe with. An engineer is always going to try to do their absolute best work they can within the constraints they are given. And the emphasis on within the constraints they are given. And so I think behind every blaster, there is designers and people that like really probably put their heart and soul into trying to make the best thing they possibly could with this stuff. And at the same time as well, for the higher ups, if something doesn't do well, they're not going to do more of it. So us kind of getting like a big attitude about Pro, which isn't necessarily aimed at us, but also is partially to please us when we've been crying the whole time, hey, just do half darts and you'll reap in all of the money and we'll support you unilaterally. to be then met with, you stank, go back home, why didn't you do this, why isn't just as good as the Nexus Pro? It's just like, why would they ever consider doing that again? And and it's also hurting the feelings of the designers who put their heart and soul into it.
And the perpetual reminder, which Anthony alluded to before, that the hobby itself, in terms of buying power, is zilch. Basically,
we're so small. We really are.
Yeah, we are
Projecting
effectively 0% of the actual money spending audience, and yes.
I definitely think at one point we had that power, and I think, if anything, the constant vitriol that's getting spit out from the hobby now, whether intentional or unintentional, has shifted that to not be the case, if that makes any sense. Because if all you're getting is just hatred, then you can already predict what the answer is going to be, so you are then just going to tune that out completely. Because that's not constructive criticism, that's just, I don't like this, it stinks, go home. It's not, I liked this about this, here's how you could improve that, or I'd like to see this.
It's interesting too, because there's also like a real natural progression away from a lot of Nerf branded stuff actually being super useful to us, as like caps change for games and like clubs have higher FPS. Like some of it isn't even like that something's bad. It's just like, well, I'm not going to use even an 85 FPS thing if the cap is like 150, and like so that's kind of like there's a lot of stuff with there. I definitely hear, and not to like there's a lot of good points too, but like I definitely hear a lot of like just like complaint, like as we all do, like comments on videos I do, like some of the complaints, I'm just like, you're really not thinking other than like your own very narrow thought in this moment of time right now. Like I don't know, it's a
thought that they can't get beyond just what their experience is. You can't think beyond that, as if there is somebody else who is not in your situation, or not you, or doesn't think like you, or doesn't have the same situation you do.
Yeah.
San Diego had a 230 FPS cap for indoor games, mind you. This wasn't even outdoor. These were indoor game caps, 230. And most clubs don't operate. When I came up here and I talked with Foam Blast, they said that their games were 130. They were basically HVZ level caps, and it's like there is such a random and wide divide between different clubs and different areas, different game types, and it's so strange to see hatred for something that is too low or even too high in some cases. Some people look at it, something that, you know, was a 300 FPS cap, and they're like, why would you even bother? Why would you waste your money? It's like, because there's clubs that need that or use that. Right. But just because your club doesn't use it doesn't mean that product that people have designed and engineered and put all this time into is crap. It's just not for you.
Well, it's worth looking to it. Like, we see a lot of situations with blasters where, you know, they have swappable springs. We're about to release. You haven't seen this yet, Anthony, but we're, you know, the how are we pronouncing it, Grim? The new worker blaster.
The Quinlan, I believe, is the correct one.
We are releasing some chronograph footage from a user who has access to one in China, and nice. It comes with two springs, and there is a higher spring which achieves a very consistent 300 FPS. There's another spring that is a little over 200 FPS, and it's fine, but it's not quite as consistent. And so you have these blasters that like really do a good job of the thing that they were designed for, and you can kind of convince them to do other stuff. But like if a blaster was really tuned in and designed to shoot 100 FPS or 80 FPS, and it does it well, there's a place for that. And not that it's not cool and good to take that blaster and try to make it shoot 150 FPS or whatever, but like if something is really tuned in on a specific range and you need that for the specific game you're going to, there's always value in that. And I always wonder if like the rise of the chronograph brought us more trouble than good in some ways.
Maybe, because I mean, I remember like I got so obsessed with like trying to get to like close to the max FPS cap for Maryland Mayhem for the tournament that like I ended up, I had some trouble with my Mark III, endless trouble with my Mark III that I'd spent a lot of time like upgrading and getting ready. And I used a 160 FPS Griffin that Trey had, he ended up giving it to me, and had like a nice bearing scar on it. I did way better with that at 160 than like, I think we do get caught up in that stuff. And I also like, I don't know. Our hobby is very, very unique in that, like, man, we love to complain that like some blaster isn't fitting. Like, you'll get a blaster that fits one niche, and we're like, I can't believe it doesn't do this. But like, most of us in the hobby have more than one. Like, man, we like to,
most of us have more than one blaster.
So
like,
many.
I don't have that many resources, and I have more than one. It's just like, different blasters have different purposes.
Yeah,
for sure. You need a few for what you're doing.
right.
I also even noted this, like, harkening back to the chronograph was kind of like the changer for this. I remember for a long time, Drac was like, I have a chronograph. I'm intentionally not going to use it in my videos because what matters is the range of the blaster. So he stuck to his range test for a while, but because he received enough backlash eventually, at least from what I saw, he eventually added in a chronograph, but he was saying all that matters is the range. And I can tell you from my own experience, at the very least, that was recent with Rag, I had we were calling them Rebeccos. They were themed after Rebecca from Cyberpunk. We couldn't get my blaster assembled in time for Rag. Because they were using worker lightweight darts. My blaster was just barely about to graze over the cap, but was just fine for Rag. But I was getting outranged by other people that had more optimized platforms for the same FPS. FPS is not really a good metric of how far and how accurate something is going to shoot.
Yeah, what really matters is
how
accuracy
tuned
at
it is.
range.
Yeah, that's the big importance thing there. FPS is good for knowing, like, engagement distance and like if it's going to hurt someone potentially,
consistency point, maybe like
for safety, but like as far as to whether or not you should or should not get a blaster, the only real thing now is if it fits the cap, and you shouldn't be trying to reach the cap. You should try and get something that's more in the middle and meets your range and accuracy expectations. That's what's really important if you're talking about that outside of that stuff.
Or you just pull up the old story of Beret running a stock Maverick, and
made it to final stand
and get to final stand on a stock Maverick.
Right.
The blaster doesn't make the player. Period.
It's true. It's true.
It really doesn't, and too many people get caught up on trying to get that min-maxing of it's got to be perfect, the blaster has to be perfect. It all boils down to you. Are you having fun? Are you enjoying it? Does the blaster do what you need it to? That's it. That's all that matters. Everything else is just fluff. Really.
I want to say at Rag, I literally had 2 mags and I think 24 darts on me, and at maximum at any given point in time, even at final stand. And most of what I was doing was actually spending time doing the role play, being the scout, doing playing my life, like having fun running around. I would be bolting back and forth between HQ, getting objectives and doing other stuff. And I did just fine. I had 24 darts, 2 magazines, and a manual primed that was like hard for me to prime blaster. And
by the time we got to final stand, I was running the modified Dart Zone solo that I won in the raffle at Flux's thing, and I had 1 magazine and I only had 1 hand because I was still wearing that glove. But I survived until the last 30 seconds. Anyway, I want to drag us back onto topic here so we can close this out before we go way over the time that we should be spending. I want to talk specifically about kind of the elephant in the hobby room right now. The partnership that a number of creators have with Siren, with NSI, which has, as we mentioned earlier, been sort of a paradigm shift, or seems to represent a bit of a paradigm shift. Because I think about other like creator partnerships that have been prominent in the hobby. The Dart Zone Pro Tour comes to mind, which was sort of a very unique approach, which was different a little bit because it was so specifically focused on the hobby. It is a hobby event, and it was, I think, a noble attempt to try to give the hobby more public exposure, but using the resources of one of the major companies. But I think personally that the decision to make players use company blasters was a major strike against it. And so it's like these sort of decisions about the companies being given control over certain aspects of what's being put out into the world, the same as a company like Siren being in control of the content of a review. You know, you were talking, Anthony, about not really being controlled at all in the reviews that you were doing, whether you were being paid or whether you were just being flown somewhere or whether you were just being sent a blaster and absolutely nothing else. There's no attempt to control the content. And I think that might be sort of the bigger paradigm shift that we maybe are facing. Maybe the backlash to this is at least within the hobby. I don't think any of this matters to the average consumer at all.
Right.
But the backlash within the hobby seems significant enough. Maybe it'll hold this at bay. I don't know. What do you think about that potential change?
It's interesting. I remember back, and I'm not going to get into I don't want to get into specifics on it, but I remember seeing someone. I'm going to be vague for a minute because I don't want to pick on this because I have more sympathy for it now than I probably did.
Absolutely.
But I remember someone reviewing something, and they're like, "This is awful," and it was awful. Like I tried it too, and it was bad. And then they were sponsored for it. And they kind of came back and were like, all right, we're looking at this. But I realized now, at the time, I was like, oh, wow, now you're kind of you're changing it because it's a sponsorship. But I honestly think that they were being as honest as they possibly could. They were like, we're framing it up a little different because this is a partnership and maybe focusing on the more positive things. And I actually, now I'm like, oh, okay, I respect that a lot more. Now that doing this long enough, I think that a lot of I shouldn't speak for other people. I'm sure there are people with whose ethical standards would never deviate. For me, I'm doing this for fun. If a company wanted to sponsor something, I would have to be comfortable. I really wouldn't want to feel like I was making people taking people's money by making them buy something that was truly awful. But generally, I would do a paid promotion for a thing for sure if it came along. I think the Siren thing is kind of interesting just because because of the saturation of it and some of the format of the ad. I still think Siren's doing some things in a bit of a weird way. I don't really hold it anything against any of the I don't judge any of the creators for doing it. I'm sure if Siren had reached out to me and were like, hey, do you want to review these blasters? I'm sure I would have as well. And it kind of seems like the way some of the footage is being used has taken some people by surprise a little bit as well. But so I'm not sure what the details are in that because I wasn't part of that flight of ads. But in the end, and I guess this is because I'm on the YouTuber side of it, I have so much patience for people taking a blaster or getting paid for something because I know how much work it is. This is a net loss. This is, I'm converting a whole garage into a little studio thing and making sure I can still park a car. I'm not doing it for money. I'm doing it because I enjoy this stuff so much and it lets me meet people. And I do run parties and I like it when my channel makes enough to pay for a storage locker, but that's paying for a storage locker that's full of Nerf, not endlessly profiting me, the person, money from parties and events. That's how I try. I have to drive 19 hours if I go to Maryland. If I go to Rag, I got to fly across the country. I don't hold it against anyone to make a little bit of money. I'm sure people are being they're being as honest as they can. Maybe that's too much credit, but I think people in the hobby should be smart enough to know too. It's this is a paid campaign. Look at all these people talking about it.
Right.
I'll probably check Reddit before I buy my final one. I don't know.
There's this thing that people have been, this new opinion that's been floating up that like, if a reviewer receives anything for free, they can't be trusted and they're morally bankrupt, I guess. And I feel like that misunderstands the entire, like, the history of what has already been happening all this time, and the idea of how all of this works. There was an article today in Digiday by someone who's active on our Discord, who's a journalist in the marketing area, which I was quoted in, by Alexander Lee, who says the summary of it, the first paragraph: to promote its line of foam dart blasters, the toy company Siren Blasters has invested in a full-bore influencer marketing campaign. But in spite of Siren's strong grasp of its market, its paid relationships with creators have made some hobbyists feel wary of the brand. Good summary, I think. But I specifically wanted to read, because I think this speaks to what you were saying before, the quote from where is it? I thought I had it. Here we go. Siren is confident in its approach to influencer marketing, which has included both dedicated foam-flinging YouTubers and more family-oriented lifestyle creators. Since core hobbyists still represent a relatively small slice of the overall market for foam dart blasters, Siren's programmatic advertising campaign allows the brand to reach a much wider audience. Quote, I don't think any of them said anything that they wouldn't have said anyway, but you can't really ask people to cut something or do something without paying them. It's just not fair, Landy said. And if you're using it for paid media, you've just got to pay. I actually really appreciate that. Just like you were saying, like, doing this stuff is work. And so at a certain point, you're either doing this thing or you're doing the other thing, right? Like, you're either just making something fully for your own. You better really enjoy just making videos about random blasters if you're doing it for free. And at a certain point, like, if you are being asked to do this, I hope that people are being compensated in some way, because I have been down that road of working for exposure and I'm so over it. For sure. Right?
Yeah, I mean, for example, we quoted this on the live podcast, and we had made this statement. It was like, Nerf YouTubers don't really make the money that people think they do, nor do most YouTubers, and we're fortunate that FNC even comes close to breaking even.
Yeah.
However, we just surface level, like just a bit ago before the podcast started, took a look at the financials, and I'd actually have to reassess that.
Yeah, we're not actually. We are on like a month-to-month basis, but that's not reality.
Yeah, like we just took a look at it again. And I was like, maybe we're not so close to breaking even as I thought. Oh, this is a lot more expensive than I remember it being. Where did all these expenses come from? Oh boy.
Yeah.
Excluding travel and all the events that we've gotten to attend.
Yeah, and I'm the one who tends to deal with it. That I see it a lot more because that's sort of the side that I tend to work with. And
Vile is the FNC treasurer, so it's kind of like under his department.
And it sucks because, 2016 YouTube, where somebody had 10,000 followers, was randomly making a good little chunk of money off of advertisement for a while there, and then over the years, obviously, that has just been eroded away through multiple issues that have happened on the platform, and now those of us, even if like the FNC has 10,000 people, we don't really make anything. And again, most of that is to pay for this podcast service. It's to put things on Podbean. It's to, pay for the expenditures that we have. And it's just enough just to squeak by for what we do. Like, when we go to events and stuff, we like to try to bring stickers and shirts and stuff, and that costs, and that's why I was saying earlier in the podcast, like, if you make a lot of us, if we could just basically break even or make even a little bit more so we could like invest more into what we do, all of us would be really happy in what we're doing, because most of us are doing this out of the passion of what we have in this, not because we're trying to be millionaires or we're trying to make tons of gobs of money. We're trying to just do it and just make it to where it's no longer it pays for itself just enough. If we could have that, it's basically the best scenario we could hope for.
And you really have to remember too, like so many people who like, I'm generalizing, but like so many people who I feel like the same person who would say, well, someone's been given a blaster, you can't trust them. This would be the same person that if they they would think that a company is criminal for charging like a margin on something for like making money at all. Like I've ran into people before like, oh, well, the markup on this or that. It's like, well, you have to have markup or otherwise why would anyone make it? Like I've had people from doing the Etsy thing too, where it's like, well, it costs you like X amount to make it. I'm like, yes. And then there's like but like it all comes back to time. I don't know. My response to anyone who's just like, oh, they're like not trustworthy, like who would say that about anyone who's like going through the trouble of doing a channel and like get out of here.
Yeah.
Try
like,
it yourself.
You can think that, but like that's silly.
Dedicate the time into it yourself and come back to me with that opinion is the best way to say it.
It's a miracle. It's a miracle any of us are doing this. Like it is so much work. I told my girlfriend tonight that because I did kind of forget. Like I'm unpacking, I'm like moving all this stuff. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm on a podcast. And she's like, you're on a podcast tonight? Where are you doing? I'm like, I'm in the garage, like in amongst the boxes, right? And no part of me was like, oh, like this is ruining my. Like I'm like, oh, that'll be fun. I haven't been doing a whole lot because it's been busy, but like most sane people would be like, oh, this is bad timing. I should be focused on other things. But like, I think many of us are just like, well, it's fun to connect with people. Like I don't know, like we're just doing it for fun. Be forgiving of the people who are making $3.
That's the big thing. And Ragnarok Oktoberfest really reminded me of that. Like ultimately it's really about like, what is this hobby other than just a thing to gather around? Like the important moments are the times when we actually get together like this, but even more so in person at events and at games and the multitude of games that happen everywhere. That's really what it's about. And it's so easy to lose sight of that when 90% of the actual time you spend in the hobby is this other stuff.
And there are a lot of people too who are very isolated.
Perspective.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah. I think a lot of where my extra perspective that's been beneficial comes from is the fact that I have enough people outside of the hobby that I can just relay this stuff to and get their reaction from, or stuff I've observed from people outside of it. So, for example, I have some friends, I won't name any names, but they're career Twitch streamer, for example, not Vile, and they are not in the Nerf scene, for example, and they're just like, wait, you're telling me you got to go fly over to this event, you held a live podcast and like 30 people showed up and listened to you, your event that like has this HVZ thing had like 300-400 people show up, and it's all for like this Nerf hobby. You produce this Nerf news show, it doesn't pay for yourself, but you're getting to follow your dreams and have fun. That's amazing. And they're like they're getting paid to do, they're like actually making money off of what they're doing, but they're not enjoying it, and they're looking at what we're doing and we're just scraping by. They're like, you're getting it to like kind of pay for yourself and you're doing all this, that, and that. Your community sounds awesome. Like that's amazing. You're doing spectacular stuff. And I'm just like, I am a peon compared to you in terms of like scale of viewership, and like you're saying what we're doing is like way cooler than what you're doing. Just because of that, it was an interesting thing to like glean off of that, is like someone that has like all that amount of success could then look down at what we do and say what we have down here is much, much better, because we're just in this spot where a lot of people kind of are just ultimately friends. We get to meet up. You may see each other only once or twice a year, but they're friends. You get to hang out with them.
Yeah.
We make a new show. There will be outside people outside the hobby. They'll view the stuff, but ultimately a lot of this is producing it because we enjoy what we're doing. We're making it for our friends, our family, people we care about, and because we're talking about toys on the internet. Our favorite quote here.
Doing it for the passion.
We
still need
to make talking about toys on the internet merch.
Yeah, we need a shirt for that.
But on the same note, We also need to understand that like none of this comes for free, and we are moving in a direction where monetization is probably going to need to increase in some way for people who do content if they want to continue to do it as the landscape continues to be ever more expensive. But at the end of the day, to the viewers, the people watching, understand the people behind this aren't some like morally bankrupt group that are like, oh, they're a sellout or this, that, and the other, or they're a shill. We're trying to make content that we enjoy and that you can enjoy, and just so we can make stuff that we can be proud of to show our friends off. And if we have to take like a sponsorship or two, it's like most of us, excluding me because I can't, a lot of us have full-time jobs that pay for our real life stuff. This is just to like make sure it gets by. We're not making some big bucks and selling out in some way you might think for this stuff. It's just so that way our passion can continue to be realistically afforded. It's so that way it can be maintained essentially. And if you can understand that, then I think people's decisions will make a lot more sense to you when it comes to this stuff. So I'd ask the viewer to kind of keep that in the back of your mind when you're about to say something like that about another content creator in this hobby. We're in a very unique space where I can say in a lot of cases that isn't really the case, and it should really be rethought.
Yeah. I think that's a really great note to end on that I hope people could pick something up from. Anthony, it's been amazing having you back on here. It's great to chat with you again.
Thanks for having me. When will I be receiving my check for being on your show? Should I talk to the treasurer or
in DMs? We'll take it off stream.
We'll figure that out.
We'll figure out what your percentage of the profit from this specific video is that we can send to you.
Perfect.
Perfect. What do you actually want people to check out of yours at this current time? What would you like to plug?
I think always YouTube. YouTube is YouTube is home for things. If you are not a subscriber, please subscribe and please comment on things. You can disagree. You can agree. I love hearing where people are from. So if you have nothing to say, just tell me, hey, like greetings from wherever. I always love that. And if you follow along YouTube, you'll know where I'm going. And if I'm going somewhere, please come and say hello. It's always a pleasure to meet people. Check out Instagram too. Instagram's kind of I have lots of one-on-one chats with people on Instagram, and I always enjoy that too. If I don't answer you, it's not personal. Maybe it got filtered or it was bad timing or something. But yeah, check out YouTube, check out Instagram. TikTok's pretty much dead, but if you just want to support me, go follow there too. I'll take it
for sure. Vile, of course, streaming on Twitch. It's still Boobtober.
It is, yes.
We still a few days left by the time this comes out.
Yeah, when this goes up, we're down to the last week, the final stretch. Actually, I am struggling to keep in second place for the leaderboard of how much we've actually raised.
Oh, goodness.
We're trying to keep it there, but there's a lot of cool stuff. We actually have things unlocked for giveaways. So if you're interested, there's blasters that actually Grim Reaper has built. For anybody who's in the EU, there's stuff for there. Actually, Domochevsky has even offered to give some stuff out to the EU. I have some other gifts for other people. So yeah, if you're interested, come help out and follow the channel and come and see the calamity that is my stream on Twitch.
Twitch.tv/vile_mods. We'll have links to that. We'll have links to Maritime Foam on YouTube down in the description. And with that, I think we can call it a show. Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great job, everybody.
I'd say so.
That's great.
Thanks so much. Have a good night.
Thank you guys. Nice to chat and catch up a bit. And we'll talk soon. Hopefully I'll see you guys at an event again someday. In the new year, 2025. Big year.